What happens to a child when you give them more stress than they can handle? What happens when you shout at them? What happens when they experience trauma, accident, loss of their parents, loss of loved ones? What happens to them? Now, if you go through the age, so 0 to 7 or 1 to 7 up until the age of 7, and if you've experienced trauma at this point, chances are that you would not have had the tools to deal with this. And not having had the tools to deal with this, what do you do? Because the trauma has to go somewhere. This experience has to lodge itself somewhere. So what happens? Our bodies are very clever and intelligent, and they decide, hang on a minute, you don't have the tools right now, but you will have the tools later on when you can deal with this. Except when later on comes, you don't know, because you can't remember that what you're now dealing with as a disease, what you're now dealing with all sorts of different things that are coming into your life, whether it is patterns, whether it is a general frustration about certain things, or general conditioning or patterning, you cannot trace it back to that point because you can't remember. Now, when you can't remember, you don't know what to do about it. Now, through a spiritual healing, your remembrance starts to come back and you're able to piece things together. Except one of the last things that you will need to piece together is your breath. Your breath would have become stuck in that moment. And it is very similar to the Kumbhaka pranayama, where we hold our breath. Now, if you've been holding your breath without intent, and you've been creating a level of pressure and compression within your organism, your body, and your energetic body, all different aspects of yourself, what's going to happen? You're only going to be able to contain it for so long before you break. It is like you've been in a pressure cooker. This is where the idea of Kundalini syndrome, which is when you have a Kundalini stirring or awakening and it is out of balance. Kundalini awakening but not arising. When you have this happen to you spontaneously and you have no idea, especially if you're somebody who's not had a spiritual awakening, who's never had it or been on a spiritual path, doesn't have a guru, doesn't have anything that is going to take you to conclude that you're going through a Kundalini awakening, chances are you'll probably think that either you're sick, there is something wrong with you, or somebody has done something to you, like a psychic attack, black magic, voodoo. And for some of you, you might think that you're going through a psychosis. Some of you might think that you need psychiatric help. And sadly, a lot of us do get institutionalized. A lot of us will find ourselves in hospitals. It wasn't a long time ago when one of the perfect masters did find himself in a mental asylum. That's a story for another day, which we'll talk about. Coming back to us, when this happens, you get stuck in a moment, and that is like the Kumbhaka pranayama. So unbeknownst to you, you've been stuck. Your breath, you've been holding your breath. So like we say, don't hold out for something or someone, and actually what you've been doing is you've been holding out. You've literally been holding all of this, and it has burst forth into a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. When you suffer trauma and it lodges itself, or you suffer a sort of conditioning for which you don't have the level of understanding to be able to unpick it, own it, or disown it, you're not having a choice over what you're being fed in terms of belief systems. And so there is all of that is also going inside of you alongside traumatic events. And these are things that start to unfold as you unpick it all through your spiritual awakening, except the trauma is the one thing that is going to need more than just unpicking, because you're going to have to pick your breath from the place that you stopped breathing. Whilst you may have physically been breathing in and out, you will notice that either your breath is quite quick, yeah, or when you are stressed or when you have palpitations, you're having anxiety, there'll be something so that your right and left nostrils are not even in balance, yeah. And apart from that, the way that you breathe will be very far from the yogic breath. A yogic breath is deeper and longer. You'll be able to breathe in, out and hold as long as possible and almost of equal length. In fact, you might be able to hold your breath for a very long period. And if you had to hold it out or hold it in, you're able to do this. For those of us who have experienced trauma and our breath stopped, yeah, not literally, but we entered into a state of kumbhaka, we entered into a state of compression, then there will be a yang and a yin imbalance. There will be an imbalance even in our sattva guna, our rajas, tamas and sattvas will all be out of whack. So when this is out of whack, there'll be part of you that's either overly masculine or part of us that is overly feminine, and all the attributes that come with this, so that your right and left side are not in balance. Not only that, but you may not have the patience or the forbearance to stay still for very, very long. Yeah, and conversely, some of you will find more comfort in simply staying, and you will not like motion because you are stuck. Your breath is stuck in that position of kumbhaka, which is it's been held. You're either being held hostage to something or to yourself, but it is being held against your will, which is the difference between when you are engaged in kumbhaka pranayam because you have an intent to do it. So it won't feel that it is forced. Now, when it feels that it is forced, usually it is because there is still an externalization of our manifest reality or our physical experience to that was taught to us by the outsiders, whether they were our aggressors, whether they were our caregivers, our nurturers, or those indeed who passed religion or spirituality to us. There will be a lot in which we are holding our breath, literally, yeah, and that will come to you. You will understand it and you will feel it when you start to focus on your pranayama part of the Ashtanga yoga, which is all part of your spiritual awakening, whether you are in yoga or not physically, or whether you are aware of the 8 limbs of yoga. You will be in these 8 limbs of yoga automatically by virtue of your spiritual or Kundalini awakening. It'll all be unfolding itself without you knowing how to do mudras or pranayama or the niyamas, the agamas. You will still be doing the dharana, the meditation and everything. It'll come naturally to you without it being taught to you, because your body and you at the subtle causal astral planes are now blossoming. You're unpicking yourself at all of those levels, and as you do that, your connection to the physical reality isn't so strong, shall we say, for a while, until you're able to unpick yourself to the point where you can come back and build more roots and you're comfortable sitting back in your body. Sending you so much love. There'll be more on this in a bit.